Thanks for checking out this tutorial. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to recreate the opening title effect in John Carpenter's 1982 movie, The Thing. Okay, so on our new project here, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to come over here to the project window, I'm going to right click and I'm going to select New Composition. The composition settings window, I'm just going to use the preset HDTV 1080-24. Going to give me 1920 by 1080 resolution at 24 frames a second. I'm going to leave the duration at 30 seconds. And here I have the background color changed to gray, so it's easier to see when there's transparent elements versus black elements, because we're going to be using those in this effect. So once all these settings are set, I'm just going to click OK. And there we go. Alright, now that we have this created, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and bring in some pre-made elements that I made. So with that set up, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in some pre-made elements for the title that I'm going to be doing. And it's just a recreation of the thing. So what I have here is I have text, which pre-made in Illustrator and exported out as a raster image, and the text is actually white with an alpha. It's showing black here just because that's the way After Effects shows alpha by default. And I have one for the thing, I have one for the text John Carpenter's, and I also have a background image that sometimes shows up. There it is. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag these elements down here into my composition, put in the background, and put in John Carpenter's text, and I'm going to put in the thing text. And there we go. Have a basic setup here, ready to go. Now what I want to do is I want to come over here to the thing, and I'm just going to right click it, and I'm going to go to pre-compose. And for the settings, I'm going to change it to the name, to the thing. And I'm going to leave all attributes in Comp 1. And I'm going to check Open New Composition. I'm going to click OK. And while I'm at it, I'm going to come over to Comp 1 up here. I'm just going to rename it to Master, so we know what file we're going to be rendering out at the end of this. I also think I'm going to create a folder for the graphics as well. I'm going to right click here, I'm going to do new folder, just title it graphics, and drag all my images in it, just so those are sorted. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here into my composition, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to new adjustment layer. With that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to Effects and Presets, and I'm going to search for Radial. And what I want is the CC Radial Fast Blur. I'm just going to click this and I'm going to drag it onto the adjustment layer. And there we go. We can already see the beginnings of this effect. So now, with the effect controls open over here, I'm just going to take the center point. I'm just going to do it with the numbers here. I'm just going to drag it down. You can see it moving down here. I'm just going to drag it down a bit. And then I'm going to increase the amount just to kind of see the effect. I'm going to change the zoom to brightest. So we can see the effect starting to take shape here. So what we want to do now is we want to come down here to the composition, right click, new, solid, and just make a black solid. That's what we're going to want. We're going to click OK. And we're going to take it and we're going to drag it to the bottom here. With that done, we're going to add a few more effects. So I'm going to come back over here to Effects and Presets, and I'm going to type in Change, and I'm going to use the Change Color effect here, and I'm going to drag it and I'm going to put it back in the adjustment layer. I'm actually going to reorder these effects. I'm going to put the Change Color one on top, and for temporarily, I'm going to disable our fast blur. I'm going to do color to change. I'm just going to select the white. And this will let us play with the actual color of whatever image you bring in, since this is an image. So I'm going to increase the saturation here. I'm going to decrease the lightness so we can see it a bit. I'm going to change it, and in this case, I'm just going to change it to kind of a bluish purple, indigo kind of thing here. I want it to be pretty light, just barely perceptible, that it's not completely white. So there we go, something like that. And then I'm going to add a curves node. I'm going to go down over here and select the curves, and again drag it in. I can drag it straight into the effect control and drag it here at the bottom. And that'll give us a way to change some of the color. Now I'm going to turn the fast blur back on. And I'm going to play with these curves a bit. You'll have to play with these a bit to get the effect that you want, but I already kind of have an idea on how I'm going to do this. Sometimes editing these curves can be a little bit of a pain. There we go. I'm going to bring the red down here, and I'm going to change the green a little bit. There. And if you don't want one of these points, you can just throw them off. And grab blue curve and drag it way up. But you can sort of see what I'm going for here. And that's going to give us this sort of color fall off here effect. So one thing about this is that you're not going to notice this without this black solid here. So on the neutral gray solid, the sort of transparent default, you won't see that color change. It has to be on top of a black solid for you to really be able to see it. So we can see it here, and we're most of the way there. So now I'm just going to play with this a bit and try and get a better effect so you can see kind of what I'm going to do here. After those tweaks, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the way some of this is built. So I'm going to come down here into our composition. I'm going to right click the thing, and I'm going to go to pre-compose. And for this, I'm going to title it lit text. So this will be our composition that has whatever text we want to apply the lighting effect to. Once I do that, I'm going to click OK. I'm going to open it up here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the thing composition. I'm going to right click that composition I just made, the lit text. I'm going to pre-compose it again. This time I'm going to title it text reveal. Click OK. And now this is where we're going to do our animations on top of this text. Now with this set up in its own composition, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select the lit text composition, and I'm going to come up to the pen tool, and I'm just going to draw a few points here to create a really basic mask. I'm just going to draw 5, and I'm making sure when I click I hold so I can get these handle points to smooth it out. And you'll notice everything's going to disappear because the default mask setting is add, and I was drawing it outside of any of the text. So what we want to do is we want to come in here to the masks, and it'll be mask 1. And we're going to make sure our scrubber here on the timeline is all the way to the left here. And we're going to click the stopwatch for mask path. Now, this will let us animate this path here so we can use it to reveal the text over time. To animate this path, just come over here And you can either drag this whole unit, or what I actually want to do is if you drag and select one of these points, you should see the handles come out, and then you can move them individually where you want them to go. So I kind of want this to start right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it to that point. I'm going to scrub through the timeline a bit. Then I'm going to expand this mask more, revealing more and more of the text. So I'm just going to do this a few times. And there we go. So we now have this sort of mask that expands and reveals the text. Now you'll notice I didn't do the entire text revealed, because I'm actually going to add another 2 masks and adjust them to kind of create a multi-point sort of dissolve there. So I'm just going to do that real quick. And there we go. So just a basic reveal here. Just going from 3 different spots and expanding all these add masks till all of the text is revealed. So a few things specific to the actual movie title sequence is, in effect, the way it was done, it was a shot in looking into a stencil that had light behind it. And what was covering the stencil was, I believe, is like a black garbage bag, something like that, and they burnt it away. So when you look at it closely, you'll notice that they light it from a few points, and 2, as it's sort of burning, it kind of moves around. So if you notice, sometimes the masks, the way the paths animate, they kind of like cover up part of the text. And I think you have a bit of wiggle room there. If you look closely at the title effect, you can see where the bag itself shifts around. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if you really want to make sure you get that even burning effect, one thing you may want to do is actually add multiple masks that reveal themselves. So you'll do one mask and then do another add mask in it, and just animate one mask expanding, so it's always expanding, and just have a layer of add masks that expand out from each other. But anyway, with that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the thing composition, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the project window, and I'm going to drag another instance of the text reveal composition on top of the adjustment layer. Okay, so what I'm going to do for that top text reveal is I'm going to change its color like I did the bottom one here. But instead of using change to color, what I'm actually going to use is a hue saturation effect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it on down to the text reveal layer itself. And once I've done that, I'm going to click colorize, and I'm going to decrease the lightness here so we can see it, increase the saturation to about 100, and I'm going to choose a sort of blue color like that and lighten it up just to take a bit of edge off this bright white light there. Something like that. You may want to play around with it a bit. But anyway, doing something like that, I'm going to come down to the adjustment layer, and going back to the change color node, I'm actually going to lower the lightness of this a bit, just to bring it down like that. So there we have a bit more text definition in our image. So now we have this and the text looks sharper. But we also have these really sharp light shafts. And if you look at the movie, the light beams aren't this well defined. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come back to our effects and presets, and I'm going to do a box blur. To take the fast box blur, and I'm going to drag it over here into effects. I'm going to lower the iterations, and I'm going to increase the radius. And make sure you check repeat edge pixels. And there, now we have a much softer effect. Still going to lower that a bit more definition. Something like that. So there we go. We're looking awfully close here. So we now have this nice light shaft effect that comes on. So as the text is revealed, it applies all the blur and color change effects, give us this nice glow. So now, if we come back to our master, see how it looks. And you'll notice, since we've messed with it, we can't see the background anymore. So we need to make a mask for that, so we can just see these light effects on top of that background. To make that mask, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come select the thing composition here, and this is the one where we have all the light and color change effects going on here. And I'm going to duplicate it. I'm just going to Control C, Control V. Help if I actually selected it up here. I'm going to rename it thing mask. Open it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click to new adjustment layer. I'm put on another hue saturation effect, and up over here where I can see stuff and drop the saturation so it's completely black and white. Then I'm going to do a levels, drag that right in here, and if you see this tall line right here, this is where the brightest elements currently are. So you'll notice the text here isn't quite perfectly white. That means it won't be opaque on top of the background if it isn't. What you want to do is you want to take this little arrow here, drag it on the line or just to the left of the line to make sure that the letters stand out solidly on top of the background. That done, I'm going to come back to the master here, go project window. I'm going to drag the thing mask on top of the thing. I'm going to come, and if you don't see the track matte options, you can hit this toggle switches and modes. I'm going to track matte from the thing. I'm going to track matte, Luma matte, thing mask. And there we go. We can now see our text, light effects applying over the background. Now, if the light beams look a little too faded, you want more of them, you can always come back to the thing mask here, and you come to the adjustment layer, and I think the best way to do this is to do another curves. Drop that in here. You can play with it so it's much brighter. Remember, the lighter it is, the more it's revealed. Then come back, and then you're going to see more of those effects right there. So there's our effect. And that's pretty much everything there is to it. If you're looking for more refinement, I think you can find just going back and adjusting some of the animation, some of the settings there, and tweaks will allow you to get the effect you want. And if you remember, when I did the lit text here, I made a composition for this text, and that'll also allow us for, in any instance, if we want to change the text, we can just add a new text in here. Put up pretty big there. crop out thing. But now you can see it's applied to any text. So with it set up the way it is right now, you can change the text. And all the effects will apply themselves. Now, one thing to consider, the way I built it, the text reveal masks, if you want to make sure that like you can put any text in here, you want to make sure these add masks extend all the way to the end of the composition, because the way it is now is if this text were something like up here, it's never going to reveal all that. So if you want to do that, you just got to make sure those add masks extend off the composition. Anyway, change that back. And there we go. Sort of some playing around. That's the effect. Thank you for watching.